Hey, what's going on, you guys? My name is the Raptor, and for today's death battle prediction, I am off camera. Not usually what I like to do, but I have found myself in a particularly tough time crunch right now, and this is just an easier way to do it. And thankfully, I think this is fairly appropriate because after having two headache-inducing matchups back to back, I think I can go over what I want to say for this one in a quicker fashion, even if there is a potentially surprising amount of information here. So Among Us vs Fall Guys is the first losing champion pool matchup that we get to see Death Battle make on their own, and while it definitely wasn't my most anticipated one out of all of them, I do think it has some good production potential, especially comedically. But as far as the debate goes, let's start with the obvious stuff. Whether we're looking at Crewmates or the Impostor, the Among Us characters are much more combat-oriented and experienced. They've consistently used a number of weapons against each other, and there's a lot more of a tactical element to what they're doing. Essentially, if you were able to prove that both sides here are working with equal capabilities and resources, the Among Us characters would have the intelligence and the instincts to utilize all of that way better than the Fall Guy beans, and they probably have more straight weapons variety anyway. That being said, it is definitely not as simple as that, as they are very different physically speaking, especially regarding what they can survive. The beans are pretty much never combative, but they are still thrown into ridiculous situations, including major contact with lava, meteors, and a black hole which then exploded. There's even a couple showcases of them resisting piercing weapons as well, meaning the standard Among Us knife and gun and such probably wouldn't be too effective, even if one of their guns can just blow up a planet in a cutscene given their durability. On the flip side, the crewmates consistently die to each other's basic attacks when they're voted out, although this presumably does not include the Impostor, as he just gets ejected into space when he's found out and can survive those conditions, as well as atmospheric re-entry. Even still though, we have yet to see any of them survive stuff on the level of the beans to my knowledge, whereas a bean is capable of what might be creating a constellation. Honestly, it's a little hard to tell exactly, but given how tough they are, I wouldn't even be surprised if it's as simple as that. But now we make our way into the most complicated aspect of this matchup, all of the material coming out of cosmetics and crossovers across both franchises. The crossovers are especially rough because it's not entirely clear how much will be looked at, and those things can change things the most drastically depending on how they're interpreted. Along with some not very well defined shape-shifting and size changing, the Impostor has roles or cosmetics that can allow him to fly, turn invisible, shoot a laser from robot parts, induce a zombie-like infection, enter a ghost mode of sorts after they die that allows them to hack but not really physically interact, and they've majorly crossed over with series such as Tinkertown, Vampire Survivors, New State Mobile, Samurai Gun 2, and more, which gives them access to a lot more weapons ranging from fodder to multi-planetary. They also have a manga. Because of course they do. Fall Guys, on the other hand, on top of their weirder powers like elasticity, manipulating their own gravity, and surviving without a head, have costumes or items that grant them flight, teleportation, limited magic, and even some weapons from series like Marvel, Star Wars, He-Man, Shovel Knight, Incredibles, Ghostbusters, and more, as well as the creative mode tablet, although that's probably hackable. They've also crossed over with series such as Final Fantasy, Astrobot, and yes, Fortnite. There was also that weird Twitter moment where every like a Fall Guys tweet got would increase the size of a bean and increase its power immensely. I don't know if Death Battle will call that outside help, but they can still get to ludicrous cosmic levels by crossing over with Bomberman or having access to Mjolnir and the literal TARDIS from Doctor Who. And if Death Battle looks at those things at face value, maybe they will, maybe they won't, I don't know of Among Us having anything that can come even close to that stuff from crossovers, cosmetics, or otherwise. So overall, it seems like a lot of the finer details are going to come down to what Death Battle decides to include or omit, which I've said before is the kind of debatability that I don't like seeing as much in versus matchups. However, even if I personally think the quote extra material in this case is too spicy to completely forego, it seems to me that whether or not they lean into it, Fall Guys has better averages and high ends in most areas. I think their biggest biggest issue is that the stuff they have has almost never been applied to straightforward combat. But I don't think that means they couldn't be, and comparing resource by resource, I just think their capabilities are more likely to extend further. If I try to get too specific with what they'll include, that'll probably just backfire on me, and maybe there's some one-off thing Among Us interacted with that changes things completely, but in the interest of sticking to one general prediction, I think there are more possible setups or conditions for this debate that will ultimately favor the Fall Guys. But of course, these are just my thoughts. Let me know what you all think in the comments below. I gotta admit, it's nice to have a more laid-back prediction after the insanity of the previous two. Like if you like this video, and subscribe if you want to see more from me. I have a couple major videos planned for sometime soon, so you don't want to miss that. Thank you for watching, have a great day, and peace out.